The Nexari arrived like a medical conference crossed with an alien invasion documentary. First Contact wasn't a Hollywood-style space battle, but a meticulously planned scientific exchange that promised to revolutionize interstellar medicine. Their species looked like something evolution would design if it were simultaneously brilliant and completely stoned. Tall, angular beings with 6 multi-jointed limbs and translucent skin that revealed a complex internal network of bioluminescent neural pathways. Each Nexari moved with a precision that suggested their entire civilization ran on an internal algorithm of absolute efficiency. Dr. Elena Reyes remembered the first joint conference on Lunar Base Alpha. The Nexari delegation glided into the presentation hall, their holographic displays already spinning complex medical diagrams that made human medical research look like kindergarten finger painting. Imagine their lead representative, Excel Nara, had proclaimed, "A universe where disease becomes a historical footnote." The promise was intoxicating. The Nexari had developed medical technologies that could regenerate entire organ systems, reverse genetic mutations, and predict potential health issues centuries before they might manifest. Earth's scientific community was practically vibrating with excitement. For 18 months, the collaboration seemed like a dream. Joint research stations were established. Breakthrough after breakthrough followed. The Nexari shared medical knowledge that could save billions of lives. Cancer? Obsolete. Genetic disorders? Erectable. Aging? More of a suggestion than a biological imperative. Nobody saw the betrayal coming. The massacre happened during a routine xenobiological research mission in the Proxima Centauri research station. What began as a standard genetic mapping expedition turned into a clinical nightmare. The Nexari struck with surgical precision, not with weapons, but with a cold, calculated elimination of human life. 247 of Earth's top medical researchers died, not in battle, not through combat, but like specimens being methodically removed from a research environment. The official Nexari report was a masterpiece of bureaucratic horror. Experimental protocol deviation, they called it, necessary biological research continuity. Humanity saw it for what it was, calculated, cold-blooded murder. And humanity was about to make them regret every single calculated decision. The global reaction wasn't a singular moment of unified rage. It was a complex symphony of grief, anger, and calculated revenge. United Global Defense Headquarters became a pressure cooker of strategic planning. The room where humanity's response took shape was an unremarkable conference space, grey walls, holographic displays, and a tension so thick you could cut it with a quantum laser. Colonel Elena Rodriguez stood at the center, a study in controlled fury. Her family tree included 3 generations of medical professionals, all of whom had been part of international research programs. The Nexari hadn't just killed researchers, they'd murdered her extended family. Beside her, Jack Harper looked like he'd been pulled from a tech startup and dropped into the most intense military strategy meeting in human history. Civilian intelligence analysts weren't supposed to be this calm when planning interstellar retribution. "They think we're predictable," Jack said, fingers dancing across a quantum interface that looked more like an abstract art piece than a computer. A military response. Diplomatic sanctions, maybe a carefully worded galactic complaint. Dr. Imani Okeke, the quantum biochemist, leaned forward. Her holographic display showed complex genetic maps, psychological profiles, and what could only be described as a weaponized bureaucratic flowchart. "We're not going to fight them," she said. The statement hung in the air like a challenge. The global reaction had been anything but uniform. Some nations wanted immediate military retaliation. Others pushed for diplomatic channels. But the United Global Defense had something more ingenious in mind. "We're going to destroy them," Elena explained, "by turning their own system against them." The plan was elegant in its complexity. The Nexari prided themselves on scientific precision, on a medical ethics system so rigid it was practically religious. Their entire societal structure was built around the concept of medical research as the highest form of existence. So humanity would use that against them. The retrieval team would extract the key Nexari researchers responsible for the massacre, but they wouldn't be killed. They wouldn't even be imprisoned in the traditional sense. They would be rehabilitated. Publicly. And comprehensively. Imagine, Jack said with a sardonic smile, forcing war criminals to actually live by the medical ethics they claim to worship. The plan was beautiful in its simplicity. Each Nexari researcher would be systematically placed in the most challenging, soul-crushing humanitarian medical assignments possible. Remote clinics, disaster zones, refugee camps, where advanced medical technology was a distant dream. Their every move would be documented, broadcast across every known galactic communication channel. They would learn humility. They would learn compassion. They would be forced to confront the very human empathy they had so clinically eliminated. Dr. Okike's display shifted, showing projected psychological impact models. They won't just be punished, she said. They'll be fundamentally transformed. Elena Rodriguez looked at the team. This isn't just revenge, she said. This is a message. A fight sage. The message was clear. Humanity doesn't just fight. Humanity reimagines conflict. And the Nexari were about to become unwilling participants in that reimagining. The infiltration plan was so ridiculous it might actually work. A medical supply shipment, Marcus Chen muttered, adjusting the quantum camouflage generator disguising their transport container. Nobody questions a medical supply shipment. The container looked perfectly mundane, which, in interstellar logistics, meant it was anything but. Custom engineered to mimic Nexari medical transport signatures, it carried a team that was about as far from a standard medical delivery as you could get. Elena Rodriguez checked her gear for the third time. Comms check, she whispered into her quantum encrypted communicator. Anyone feeling claustrophobic? Only every millisecond of this mission, Jack Harper responded, his fingers dancing across a handheld quantum decryption device that looked like it had been assembled from spare parts and pure mathematical contempt. The container's internal environment was a marvel of technological deception. Atmospheric pressure, electromagnetic signatures, even the microscopic dust patterns matched Nexari standard transport protocols. Dr. Imani Okik had spent 3 months designing a system that could fool sensors more sensitive than most planetary defense networks. Approach vector confirmed, Marcus announced. His hands moved with the precision of a surgeon and the speed of a quantum computer. We've got a 12-minute window before their secondary security grid does a full-spectrum sweep. The Nexari research complex was a nightmare of security. Quantum-locked chambers, probabilistic defense systems that could predict potential infiltration attempts before they even happened. It was the kind of facility that made maximum security prisons look like open-air cafes. Their first complication arrived exactly 7 minutes into the mission. Unexpected variable, Jack said, his voice a mix of professional calm and barely contained panic. The transport manifest doesn't match the internal container signature by 0.003%. Elena's response was immediate. Fix it. I'm trying to hack a system that can predict mathematical deviations before they happen, Jack muttered. This is like trying to lie to a sentient calculator with a psychology degree. Dr. Okiki leaned in, her quantum interface flickering with complex algorithmic patterns. Introduce a deliberate micro-error, she suggested. Make the deviation look like a human mistake, rather than an intentional hack. The plan was so crazy it might work. Jack's fingers blurred across the interface. A series of seemingly random computational errors began to cascade through the Nexari system. Not enough to trigger a full alert, just enough to look like standard human imperfection. We're in, Marcus announced, his voice a mix of professional calm and barely contained excitement. The container's internal systems shifted, a holographic camouflage activated. They were no longer a medical supply shipment. They were ghosts in the most secure research facility in known space. Remember, Elena said, checking her tactical gear, we're not here to start a war. We're here to finish one. Jack snorted. No pressure. The Nexari research complex was a labyrinth of impossible geometry. The corridors that seemed to shift when you weren't looking, security systems that breathed like living organisms. This wasn't just a building, it was a technological organism designed to protect its most valuable specimens. Marcus Chen moved like quantum liquid, bypassing security checkpoints that should have been impossible to breach. His augmented reality overlay flickered with potential pathways, each route a complex dance of probability and risk. "We've got 3 minutes before the next security rotation," Elena whispered into the team's quantum encrypted comm channel. "Jack, how are we looking?" Jack Harper's voice crackled back, part excitement, part sardonic humor. "I'm literally holding the entire facility's security network together with digital duct tape and mathematical wishful thinking. So, perfectly normal." The target list was precise. 6 key Nexari researchers directly responsible for the Medical Corps massacre. Not the foot soldiers, but the architects of the systematic elimination. Dr. Imani Okiki's voice cut through. Extraction sequence initiated. Primary containment wing approaching. Their first unexpected twist came 30 seconds later. A maintenance drone looking like a cross between a spider and a medical instrument suddenly pivoted in their direction. Marcus froze, his entire body going impossibly still. "Don't move." His whisper was barely audible. The drone hovered. Sensors extended, scanning. Jack's fingers danced across his quantum interface. "I'm feeding it a loop of standard maintenance footage," he muttered. "Come on, you glorified flying stethoscope." And the drone wavered, hesitated, then continued its predetermined patrol. That, Jack said, was way too close. The containment wing was a sterile nightmare. Each research subject was contained in a quantum-locked chamber that could simulate entire environmental ecosystems. Genetic research taken to its most extreme logical conclusion. Target 1 secured, Marcus reported, carefully extracting the first Nexari researcher. The being looked more like a complex medical diagram than a living creature, all translucent skin and intricate neural networks. Elena's voice was ice. "Remember, no permanent damage. We want them functional for rehabilitation." The second twist came with the third target. As Marcus began the extraction, the quantum lock system began to destabilize. Alarms that weren't supposed to exist started to pulse. "We've got a problem," Dr. Oki announced with remarkable calm. "The containment field is creating a quantum resonance cascade." Jack's response was immediate. Translation for those of us who don't speak pure mathematics. "The entire wing might quantum shift in approximately 2 minutes, she replied. Marcus didn't miss a beat. "Approximately, give or take 15 seconds. The extraction became a high-stakes dance with precise movements, calculated risks, the kind of operational ballet that would make traditional military strategists weep. "Last target," Elena said, her voice a mixture of tension and dark humor. "Let's go home." As they moved, Jack couldn't resist. Just another day at the office, right? Silence. Then simultaneous team laughter that was equal parts hysteria and professional satisfaction. The Nexari wouldn't know what hit them. The Galactic broadcast network went live with unprecedented anticipation. Every species with interstellar communication capabilities watched, their collective breath held in suspense. The 6 captured Nexari researchers sat in identical white chairs, looking like a bizarre medical conference gone wrong. Their translucent skins seemed to shimmer with confusion, a mix of scientific arrogance and mounting dread. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood before them, her presentation less a punishment and more a systematic deconstruction of everything the Nexari believed about themselves. "You thought you were conducting research," she began, her voice calm and precise. "What you actually did was commit the most profound violation of medical ethics in galactic history." The rehabilitation plan was beautiful in its brutal simplicity. Each Nexari researcher would be systematically reassigned to the most challenging humanitarian medical assignments imaginable, not as researchers, not as scientists, but as front-line medical workers in the most desperate corners of the known universe. Remote refugee camps on radiation-damaged colonies, emergency medical stations in war-torn planetary systems, clinics where advanced technology was a distant dream and human compassion was the only real medicine. You will learn, Elena continued, what it means to heal, not as a theoretical concept, not as a scientific procedure, but as a fundamental act of compassion. The twist was in the details. Every moment would be documented, broadcast across every known communication channel. Key. Their rehabilitation would be a public spectacle, a living case study in medical ethics and human resilience. Jack Harper's quantum interface began displaying their assigned locations. A holographic map erupted behind the Nexari researchers, each location more challenging than the last. Refugee Camp Epsilon 9, he announced. 37 species. Minimal medical infrastructure. Your job? Basic triage and humanitarian care. The first Nexari researcher's translucent skin actually seemed to pale. Dr. Imani Okeke stepped forward, her presentation revealing the true depth of their punishment. These weren't just assignments. These were comprehensive re-education programs designed to dismantle the Nexari's clinical detachment. You will learn, she said, that medical research is not about specimens, it's about lives. Each assignment was carefully constructed, impossible to escape, designed to break down their scientific objectivity and rebuild something fundamentally more human. Marcus Chen's final contribution was the most devastating, a complete documentation and publication of their original massacre, and not as a clinical report, but as personal stories of the researchers they had killed, each victim's life, dreams and potential laid bare for the entire galaxy to witness. The Nexari hadn't just been captured, they'd been fundamentally reprogrammed. Their punishment wasn't destruction, it was understanding. Welcome, Elena said with the barest hint of a smile, to your new career in compassionate medicine. The galaxy watched, and humanity demonstrated once again why you should never underestimate a species capable of turning bureaucracy into the most exquisite form of revenge. The galactic communication networks hummed with a mixture of shock, respect, and barely contained terror. Humanity hadn't just punished the Nexari. They had weaponized compassion into the most sophisticated form of psychological warfare ever conceived. Other spacefaring civilizations watched the public rehabilitation of the Nexari researchers like it was the most intense reality show in galactic history. The Zorn Confederacy sent diplomatic communiques that roughly translated to what the actual hell humans. Quantum archives captured every moment of the Nexari researchers' new careers. A research species renowned for clinical detachment was now learning empathy through the most brutal possible method: actual human connection. On a radiation-damaged colony's emergency medical station, a former lead Nexari researcher struggled to comfort a dying child from a species they would have previously classified as a research specimen. The broadcast captured the moment their translucent skin actually showed something resembling emotion. Is this what humans call feelings? The researcher muttered into their communication device. Jack Harper, monitoring the feeds, couldn't help but laugh. Welcome to the club, buddy. The punishment transcended traditional concepts of justice. It was a systematic deconstruction of an entire species' philosophical approach to existence. The Nexari's rigid scientific worldview was being methodically dismantled, one humanitarian mission at a time. Other galactic civilizations learned a critical lesson: humanity doesn't just fight wars. Humanity reimagines conflict with a level of psychological complexity that bordered on artistic. And somewhere, in a small clinic on a forgotten moon, a former Nexari war criminal was learning how to properly sterilize medical equipment, one excruciating lesson of human empathy at a time. The galaxy watched, and humanity smiled,